to Modern Altars, the podcast where faith meets the pulse of today. I'm your host, Talya Mungin, and together we'll explore and navigate conversations about pop culture, beginner's theology, Christian life living, youth, and the church. Without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Hey guys, it's Talya Mungin here, and you're listening to another episode of Modern Altars. And today we have a very special guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but I'm probably going to have to come up after him and explain some more because I guarantee you he's going to leave something out. So today we have my pastor and my father, Pastor G. Lydell Mungin. Welcome to the show.
Hey, I am totally ecstatic about being on your podcast. Wow, this is amazing. And you've already introduced me, so there's nothing else for me to say. I guess I got to figure out whether I'm pastor mode, dad mode, but all in all, it's great to be with you on today.
See, I knew he would leave something out. He is a pastor of a great church in Varnville, South Carolina. He is the father of 6 children. He has 4 grandchildren. It's about to be 5 grandchildren. He is in the nonprofit world through the church and disconnected from the church. He's involved in a lot of humanitarian work, a lot of giving back to the community, and he's on a bunch of councils and leadership positions. And he wouldn't say any of this stuff, so I have to add it. And he's been married to my mom for 31 years. 30 something, like a long time, a really long time. So just had to add all of that stuff because dads. So today we don't really have a topic. I labeled this a conversation with my father because we're just going to see where this goes. But leading up to our final episode, the season finale of Modern Altars, I just wanted to really bring someone on that can really encapsulate a bigger part of my life and kind of add wisdom and listen into the conversations that me and him already have. So this is just sort of an insight. You're going to be a fly on the wall, some of the conversations that we have. So my first question to you, can you share about how communication within the church has evolved over the years? Because one thing about the way I was raised, the church I grew up in, the church that you pastor, is very multi-generational. And so there's a lot of differences in communication. Like, how have you navigated that with our differences and maybe things that you've observed over the years?
That's a really great question. And I believe that the way that you navigate communications between multi-generations is through building bridges. You have to find commonalities. Believe it or not, regardless of the generation, regardless of what demographic you're in, there's something that you can build a relationship through, and which will in turn build a bridge. Take, for instance, one of you and my loves is food. We're both foodies. So the commonality between us, just in this example, would be food. So how do you build a relationship with somebody that's in a different generation? Maybe you'll use a conversation about food and meet on that level that you have in common. And then it goes from there. You only need something that's foundational. And I think that the injustice that have been done to a lot of organizations, not only the church, have been through silos and setting everybody up in just one particular group. But when you tear the silos down and you tear the walls down, and you find some type of commonality, then you can build bridges that join generations together. And I'll talk all day. And, the second thing is this: we all need each other. So I think transparency is really big also. and showing each generation that that each perspective is very important. I think the Bible says something in the effect in Joel chapter 2 that the old men would dream dreams, but the young men would see vision. And I think when we look at that narrative from Joel chapter 2, right there, it shows you need the dreamers and you need the visionaries. And when you bring those two together, then you have a blueprint for success.
That's good. I have a question that's not written down, but when you say the vision or visionaries or whatever, what do you say to maybe the idea that we see sometimes where older people crack down on young people for being dreamers? They're like, be more realistic, or whatever that is, but there has to be sort of a sense of, I don't want to say dreaming, but a sense of ambition, a sense of there has to be more than this for progress to happen. But what do you say to some of those older voices that say, hey, you need to be more realistic about this because it's this way, it's always been done this way? What do you say to that?
You take them back down memory lane and you show them that at some point, especially those who have had great success, you take them and you show them at some point they were a dreamer and a visionary also. And you show them that it was risk taking, it was faith, it was following sometimes a path that's least trodden, that they took to get where they are. Sometimes success and getting to a place where the struggle is over in certain areas of your life, make you forget about the road that brought you to where you are. And if you can get people to remember those moments where they started, then you can make them see that usually the next generation is just doing the same thing. It's the same pattern. I think somebody put it like this: it's the same soup, but it's warmed over, and sometimes you just add a little more ingredients, or whatever the case may be. But that's how it is.
Yeah. And I think there is, this is kind of leading into my next question, but there is a hesitancy to have certain conversations with older generations because so often there's this cutoff where it's like, okay, stay in your place. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that as Gen Z is becoming adults, uh, Gen X and even the baby boomers are still seeing Gen Z through the lens of that's a baby, that's a child. And so it's like this strange disconnect in communication. And you say, we have to be bridge builders, but even voicing some of the opinions of my peers and some of my friends, it's so difficult to have those conversations because often it feels like we're speaking two different languages back at each other. And it's just such a, it can be such a frustrating thing. And
That's.
so,
Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
That's where people like you come in, that are what we would call outliners. There are certain people. I think that that's my calling. Also, I think that I'm an outliner too. Here's a strange thing. I'm I was born in Generation X, but I have baby boomer tendencies, and I strive to understand those that are coming after me. So I think that being an outliner helps you to kind of stand back and say, you know what, I'm going to be the one that helps to kind of push all of these generations together because I can actually understand the brilliance of each generation, because each generation has a certain level of brilliance, a certain level of something to bring to the table. And it takes visionary leadership to be able to stand back and see what everybody is bringing. It's like a, all right. So let's take a, since I said bring to the table, let's take a table. You can't have a table without legs. You got to at least have, three legs, or if it's a one leg table, it still sits on a platform. But you got to have some type of support system to hold the table up. And so I kind of look at it like this: each generation supports the next. And when you bring it all together, you have a fully functional table. You have something that can stand pressure, something that can stand weight, something that holds up to purpose, holds up to what it was designed and crafted for. You have a yeah, yeah. And so there's a certain level of brilliance that every generation brings to the table, and being able to see that and then pull that together. It takes outliners. I believe it takes outliners. It takes people who are who's able to see. Because if you can't, I hear people say, "Well, those young people." I know some young people that are brilliant. I know some young people that are brilliant. You're one of them. And I can name some other young people that are just brilliant, that are in their teens and in their 20s, and they bring something special to the table that maybe my generation and the baby boomers might not have, if it's no more than the connection to their generation.
And that's good. So, when we talk about generational differences, the main setting we're talking about is in the church, but even looking out into the world and even like professional settings, there's also differences. But the issue in the world is that the communication styles have shifted and they change as well. So how can we alter how we talk to each other? Because there's certain things that maybe you can say in a nonprofit setting or in a business setting to a young person, or they can say to you that may be seen as disrespectful in a church setting. So how do we have open conversations while maintaining that respect, maintaining that, even that acknowledgement of, hey, this person is my elder, because we realize that, that's biblical. We have a biblical responsibility to maintain a sense of respect. So how do we manage that?
One of the scriptures that come to mind, and you can use this whether it's in a secular or in a sacred setting. All right. The Bible instructs the children to honor their parents, but then the Bible instructs the parents not to push their children to wrath. So, if you're going to get respect, you got to give respect. Sometimes it's just to tear down the walls that are built up in either generation. And respect is big. It's what it's going to take in order to hear each other. Because at the end of the day, um, there can be miscommunications that are brought to a place where they're understood by simply showing respect and love. I'll use for an example, one of my children. We always seemed to miss each other when it came to communications. We just seemed, and one day we were outside having what I would call a heated discussion. And all of a sudden, it dawned on me that I was missing what he was saying because I had a preconceived notion in my own heart. And the minute that the Lord showed me that, I was able to then humble myself, which in turn opened up my understanding to what he was saying. No longer was it a misunderstanding. At that point, it became understanding. So here it is. The best definition I've heard of the word understanding, it is platform or the uh, ideal or the ideology or the information or the culture that you stand under. So, whatever the culture is, whatever the ideology, whatever the platform, whatever the mindset that you're standing under, that's the understanding that you'll have. Our problem is so often we allow tradition and we allow misnomers and we allow what other people said to create our understanding instead of standing back, taking a look at the situation from a holistic point of view and seeing just what the solution is, regardless of the emotional aspect of the moment. And sometimes that's difficult, especially if you're a person that lack understanding. But the minute you come under the right stance, the right understanding, the right culture, the right ideology, then you're able to really communicate with anybody. You can even speak a different language, which most generations do speak a different language. You can speak a different language but still come to a place of understanding, a place of honor, a place of respect, a place of community, a place of, here it is, a place of love. And you, of course, you know that love is the greatest power. And when persons really shown love and feel loved, then regardless of the situation, you can work and press things out.
That's good. And kind of segueing into a different topic, you're a leader in multiple settings. How did you become a leader? Is a leader born? Do you develop the characteristics of a leader? Is it something that you just had to be like, okay, I guess I have to lead? Is it from necessity? Is it from call? What is it?
I think it's all of it. I really do. I think that leaders are born, but I think that just because leaders are birthed out, I thought about the prophet. God told him that you are ordained a prophet from your mother's womb. And rather that's a person that prophesies secularly or a person that prophesies in the sacred realm. I think it's a calling. I think you're born a leader, but then after you're born a leader, there have to be an awakening. There have to be a revelation, an illumination. And then after there's that awakening, I think then it's required of us to begin to um, work on our leadership abilities, to tailor make our leadership abilities according to our purpose, um, to challenge ourselves, to expand our capacity to lead. I don't think that you can just say, "Well, I've been called to lead," and then that's that. I think that we have to really challenge that call and stretch it, to the full capacity according to the purpose of that the Lord is that have called you to. So I believe that it's like a soup. It's all of it together that makes great leadership. And by the
Yeah,
way, I don't consider myself to be a great leader. Um, I just consider myself to be um, someone that tried to hear purpose, intent, try to stay humble, um, and try to get direction from above. Back to vision, try to get vision from God, even as it relates to um, of course, we have businesses um, in that aspect, in the sacred aspect concerning the church, and then in the nonprofit aspect also try to hear God and then execute what you hear.
that's good. I think with leadership, often with people, leaders are born, but I think also there's a certain atmosphere that awakens leadership to an extent. And sometimes that is necessity. Some people don't necessarily want to lead, but they look around and say, who else is going to do it? If no one is stepping to the plate, if no one is doing it effectively, sometimes that will create an atmosphere that warrants a leader to rise up. Um, but I don't, I heard one time and it said some of the greatest leaders never wanted to lead. What do you think about that?
Every great leader never want to lead. Who wants that responsibility? And while you were talking, I thought about Moses. I thought about the fact that you were talking about born out of necessity. Moses was born out of necessity. His name literally means one that draws out or drawn out. And I think it refers to him being drawn out of the Nile River, but also the one that came to draw out the children of Israel out of Egypt. And so when we look at that, that's necessity. You can't. I think that God positioned people according to the Bible says that God heard the cry of His people, so He positioned people out of necessity based on what's needed in that moment. Another thing about that that came to my heart was, the greatest aspect of leadership is influence. And so, even though you're called, you have to learn how to be an influencer.
I agree with all of it. And I think in my experience, it definitely I had to be kind of run down to an extent. I didn't put up that much of a fight because I mean I'm here. But I didn't want to want to be a leader in any aspect. The introvert in me was screaming the whole way. But you're an extrovert, so you're set up a little bit differently. The other day you had come home from some meetings and some ministry work and a lot of things, and you came back home and you were like, my social battery is running out. And I'm like, what? Because
You
because
all,
that's not
she, she,
you. That's
she's
for me. That's my
she,
thing. Your social battery is running out.
she
But
taught me that, you all, because until she taught me that, I didn't know what to call it. All I knew was I'm tired. I'm mentally drained. I'm tired. I don't want to take another phone call. But she taught me what social batteries are.
yes. But I think that's a good demonstration though, the fact that me and you, we have similarities, but in a lot of ways socially we're very different. But I think whether you're an introvert, whether you're an extrovert, that God uses specific traits in people to accomplish different things. So just because you're naturally wired a certain way, or your personality is a certain way, doesn't mean that you're not called to be a leader in whatever area God has called you to. Because I am in the communication and marketing department, even here at school, and there are people who are introverts who want to go into fields, professional fields, and they're introverts and they're shy, but they're like, that's what I want to do. So even in the business world, but definitely in ministry, like God can use um quirks and personality traits and even your introvert tendencies to accomplish whatever it is he's positioned you to do.
No doubt. One of the greatest books I read was the book by Rick Warren, The Purpose Driven Life, because I had such a problem with part of my character, because you know that I'm a jokester. And so it did not match up with the blueprint that I saw for most pastors. They were real serious and real starch. And here I am, you know, I'll take a moment and find the comedy in it. And so when I read that book, and somewhere in the first part of the book, it said that everything about you God gave you because of the purpose and the call that's on your life. And so even my personality, it might not be a fit for everybody, but it's certainly a fit for those who God have called to me and who God have called me to.
That's good. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please stay tuned for part 2, where we get into more conversations about weirdness, accepting who you are, and some more fun stuff. Stay tuned. God bless. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Select episodes will be available on Facebook, but stay tuned to YouTube and Spotify to stay up to date on all content. We love hearing from you, so connect with us on social media and use the hashtag Modern Altars Podcast and share your thoughts. What topics or guests would you like to see on future episodes? Let us know. And keep your eyes out for a Google form where you can share your episode ideas, ask questions, and make suggestions. Until next time, God bless.